what I was going to say about the fertilizer is most people know that back east in Iowa, eastern Nebraska, they did put a lot of fertilizer on, a lot of anhydrous went on, and they pretty well ran the system dry. And now with the corn price going up, we got volatility in the fertilizer, especially in the phosphate market. The dry phosphates have gone up considerably, and they're very hard to find. And it's also causing the liquids. So one thing in the fertilizer, on starters, if you have not made decisions on a starter and have maybe tried to talk to dealers about your commitment, what you need, you need to do that. You need to move on the starters and also your phosphates. Potassium is tight too, and it's hard to come by. I think it'll soften up later on, but right now, with inflation, there seems to be very tightness. You get into the nitrogens, they've been pretty flat. Urea took off and went high. Now it's coming back down. I would wait on that. I think it's going to tell how much ammonia went on and how much, and so I think we wait on that. But on the phosphates, you need to figure out what you're going to plant and what you're going to do, and you need to make some phone calls and get some commitment on your starters if you haven't already done it. That's what I would do. It's just going to be volatile. Inflation, just with the fuel going up, everything going up, I just think it's going to be, you're going to have to procure what you want and get it done. This also goes over into the chemicals too. The chemicals, the Roundup is becoming very tight. They're having a hard time getting stuff from China. Roundup has been going up about every week. It's gone up about $5 a gallon, and it's hard to come. Actually, it's hard to get it, and so I think there's some hoarding going on. And anytime things get tight, it always causes prices to go up, and so you need to be making commitments on your chemicals. As far as chemicals, what we do for spraying, we're with the Palmer Amaranth. We are doing a lot of dicamba on our corn. We're trying to spray our corn post-emerge and using some dicamba with full time or you got harness. You also got some other ones too that you can use, but we're trying to use some dicamba to try to get rid of this Palmer Amaranth, and we're doing more post-emerge. And so it's going to be a battle in these weeds. They're becoming more resistant, and some of the pre-emergents are very old chemicals that are not working very well. So we'll be working very hard we got to be on top of these weeds. They can't have very much growth. We're finding that we got to get in there and get them when they're small. And if you let them get any bigger, that Palmer Amaranth will go about 4 inches, every 2 days. So we got to be on top of that. As far as the soybeans, the dicamba is going to be very difficult to spray. We're going to have a pre-emergent on. We're doing pre-emergent, maybe using some dicamba early to get away from some of the volatilization. But when it comes to spraying dicamba later on, you're going to have a lot of products in there. You got to have a drift agent, you got to have a volatilization agent, and there's going to be a lot of restrictions, and everybody's going to be looking out. So you got to be very careful that you don't get your neighbor's crop. And there's going to be a lot of restrictions. It's going to be not easy to spray it, and any wind or any drift is going to come back on you. So we're trying to do a pre-emergent, and then we're putting with a pre-emergent, we're putting the dicamba with the pre-emergent to try to get some residual. We're using Fierce, Surveil, and there's some guys are putting Treflan down, and we're putting Valor with the Treflan. So we got to rework on the pre-emergence on these soybeans, and it has to be got to be on top of it. It's just going to be, with the weather, we're going to have a very narrow window. Now there is some of these beans are going to be Liberty tolerant. So I think we're going to be looking at the Enlist, and Liberty are probably going to become the predominant here another year. It'll be mostly Enlist and Liberty and Roundup beans, because you can spray some Liberty, not have to worry about the volatilization. And so that you'd have two. Liberty does a good job on some. It's got a narrow window, but Enlist works, but you got to go on small weeds with Enlist. Anything big on what we found, spraying any tall weeds with Enlist was not good. Another thing on Enlist is you want to use the old crop oil, not the new surfactants of the high loads. The old crop oil works the best. So we're going to, as our operation, we're going to work very hard on pre-emergence on soybeans, and we're going to work very hard on post-emerge on corn. And so that's something we're going to be looking at. And you need to be looking and figure out what you need for the chemicals, because I think they're going to become short supply from a standpoint. They cannot get these these jugs. What I want to say, they're having a hard time getting the plastic, and so they're having a hard time delivering. So we need to be on top of it. But the Roundup is a tight supply just because stuff's not coming from China. Now, are they using that for excuse? I don't know. But I do know that when I call, they're not giving me prices on some of these products. So I think you want to be aware this is the year to get ahead of the game, and don't wait till the last minute to get your stuff. As far as economics, we're a believer in a corn on corn of putting a fungicide on, and then some micronutrients. We think last year it was 15 bushel plus with putting a fungicide on your corn on corn. And also in the soybeans, we think it was almost 10 bushel on the soybeans having a fungicide out there with the frog eye, white mold, and other diseases. So we're pushing more to be more proactive on, a lot of these fields have been corn on corn for a lot of years. We don't have quite the rotation, and the way they were talking here earlier, bullish on corn and maybe more corn on corn. We're seem to be real strong on the fungicide, and also putting the micronutrients, the boron. We put the boron and the fungicide together when we go through the pivot, and we also do other micronutrients. And so we're really focusing on that because we've been pulling a lot of big yields off. And if you go into a dryland corner of your field and take a soil sample and compare the micronutrients there, compare it into your irrigated, it's like half. So we are drawing our micronutrients down, especially boron and manganese, and even copper. We're pulling them way down. If we want big yields, we're going to have to be looking at that. Now, one thing we're doing a lot of is we're doing a lot of tissue sampling. And I think if you ever watch the boys, the hula, and those boys, they call them level farmers. They're doing tissue samples all the time. And I think we're going to have to be more tissue sampling to see where we're at, because as these fertilizers become higher priced, we're going to need to know what our crop needs, and we can put it out there later if we have to. And so I think that we need to be looking at that. As far as other economics, we just, the timing, that keeps the nitrogen. When we're doing our tissue sampling, we're checking at the flag leaf. We want to see where we're at. Last year, the extra nitrogen, if you have sunlight and heat, extra nitrogen, we'll put it on. Some of these longer season corns are taking up nitrogen way after brown silk, and we've kind of proven that produces 15 to 20 bushel. And so there's a lot of things that we're coming down. The technology is getting better with, looking at your fields and finding out what you got. We're also trying to look at the yield maps to go out and try to get these areas up, bring them back up better. And so there's a lot going on, especially when you get these crop prices like they are. We're going to be looking at all areas of the fields to see where we can improve. And but going back to the fertilizer, nitrogen's not, it's kind of flat, but I tell you, it's going to be, it's going to go up with inflation, with fuel going up. I just think you got to go out there and you make some decisions right here and now to find out what you can get secured and know where you're at for your costs. And that's kind of what my report is. So you got anything you need to ask?
I think you covered things pretty well.
Okay.
I guess we're kind of bullish on prices, but that price bullishness on that affects, they take advantage of that on us. So it's kind of
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Well, I think you got, the fertilizer is just, there's just too few hands. There's too many, not very many people making it. And the money people get in there and just redirects, it's kind of it's totally different when I first started out in this business. Right now, it's kind of frustrating. You can't get any straight answers. Nobody. So it's kind of frustrating from the standpoint of, it looks like we're getting the bad end of everything. So,
Okay.
and then also on the phosphate, Mosaic put a tariff, got a tariff on the bringing in the foreign stuff, and that's also caused the price to go up too. So I just say everybody needs to take a look at it, because you need to know your costs and even the chemicals. I think all of it, you got to move faster. You got to get it. I think a lot of people have done already, but I think if you haven't, you need to move on it.